If you were to read Leviticus 20 for the first time, you would likely pause. Not because you are careless, but because what this chapter says is too direct. It does not speak in abstract ideas. It speaks about concrete realities: family, children, sexuality, worship, authority, the body, and even death. What unsettles us most is often not the actions themselves, but a sentence God repeats again and again: "I will set my face against that person." We are used to asking, "Isn't this too severe?" But the real question this chapter presses upon us is another one. Why does God treat these things with such gravity? At the very beginning, the chapter confronts an extreme act: someone offering their child to Molech. This is not religious devotion. It is treating life as a bargaining object, taking a child and trading that life for protection, for success, for a future. God says this is not only an injury against the child, it defiles his sanctuary and profanes his name. Then you encounter something that makes you stop. God does not speak only to that individual. He says that if the surrounding people pretend not to see, if the family silently permits it, if the community chooses to look away, he will set his face against them also. This is not because God is cruel, but because in God's sight, sin is never merely private. When a society begins to accept that, as long as it benefits me, even children may be sacrificed, that society is already collapsing. Then the text speaks about mediums and spiritists, and God uses a word that makes us uncomfortable. He calls it prostitution. Why? Because this is not about techniques or curiosity. It is about to whom you hand over the authority of your life. The moment a person entrusts security, the future, and direction to something other than God, Scripture describes it as a betrayal within a covenant. Not because God fears your knowledge, but because he knows you are yielding yourself to a false lord. The chapter then moves into the boundaries of family and the body. You will notice a consistent direction: not allowing intimacy to become exploitation, not allowing power to become possession, not allowing the body to become an object. Here, sexuality is not treated as entertainment. It is treated as something that can tear relationships apart, corrupt a community, and even affect generations. Some acts are judged with death, some are described as being cut off, some result in childlessness. Scripture does not present a tidy legal chart here, but it repeats one reality: not every destruction is immediate collapse, yet every destruction is a severing of life. Just when you think the chapter is only about individual behavior, God says something striking: "Lest the land vomit you out when you make it unclean." In other words, these are not isolated incidents. They are a way of life that even the land cannot bear. When a people consistently trample life, distort intimacy, invert worship, and destroy boundaries, God says the land itself will respond. Then the text speaks about clean and unclean animals. You might ask, what does this have to do with everything before? There is only one connection. God is teaching his people to discern, not to separate which people are superior, but to discern what leads life toward death. At the end of the chapter, the text returns again to mediums and spiritists, as if to say, no matter where the departure begins, it always ends in handing life over to a false master. Now we must face something honestly. If the chapter ended here, it would be nothing but judgment. But Scripture does not end at Leviticus 20, because later, there is one person who was cut off in the place of all who should have been cut off, who bore the guilt of all who should have borne their own guilt, who carried the true turning of the face for lives that had been defiled. On the cross, he bore the very consequences toward which Leviticus 20 points. Not because God lowered the standard, but because God himself bore the weight of that standard. So this chapter is not asking you, have you done well enough? It is asking you, in whose hands have you placed your life? Because what truly makes a person holy has never been the law itself, but the one who, for the unholy, entered death and brought life back again.